Um, Different channel I did a whole series on home distillation, home brew, different things like that. I'm not bothering with this channel doing that sort of stuff really. A little bit now and again, but you don't have to use high tech and lots of expense. I'll give you a good example of how to make alcohol. Alcohol, for a start, is very good for things like disinfecting wounds, for clearing out your system, for cleaning parts, cleaning electrical circuits. It's a good all round thing. It's also quite good to get drunk with. And also for barter, for trade. It's very simple to actually make. I'm going to give you some simple ways of how to do it. First of all, to make vodka, don't bother with potatoes unless you own a potato farm. The simple way to make vodka is you take something that has sugar in it, you convert that to sugar, you convert the sugar to alcohol through fermentation, you take the fermented alcohol and you distill it to the volume strength that you want. That's how you make vodka. To turn vodka into gin, you chuck in a few juniper berries, give it a couple of hours, that then becomes gin. Ta-da! Anyway, the simplest way to make alcohol is to take something and let it go off. Like, for example, if you've got oats or some kind of grain, and then you make it moist, keep it warm, just like she said, and then it will ferment, naturally ferment into alcohol. I've done this by accident many times. I had horses. Another way that I've done this before, when I was in prison, I had a little pot, yes, little thing. It was one of these like peanut butter plastic pots. So what I did, that plastic pot is pretty much the same size as a small apple. I would take my apple, I would take out the core, my little plastic spoon. I would then put in one sachet of sugar. I would put the core back in. I'd put that pot with the apple inside it on the window ledge. After a week, that will ferment. After about 4 or 5 days, that becomes apple syrup, which is really nice. Sort of thing you get in a tin of fruit. Now, if you give that another week, that will ferment and become alcohol. So after about a week to 2 weeks, you've now got your little pot of alcohol. You keep adding a bit of sugar, bit of fruit, bit of water, keep it warm, and that will continue to expand your business until 3 years and 4 months later, you're supplying half the fucking prison in 50-litre drums. So, they were right when the Muslims found out the extras I was putting into it. But anyway, nothing compared to what. Anyway, so that is one way you can do it. You get a piece of fruit, add a bit of sugar, squish it up, keep it warm, and it will ferment into alcohol. You don't have to go and buy yeast. You don't have to go and get all these expensive things that YouTube tells you have to get, or all the people pushing their agenda saying you have to buy these things, you have to spend money, you have to spend money. People have been fermenting alcohol for tens of thousands of years without having to go to a supermarket, without having to buy sugar. I mean, another way is, I'm not going to go into the gastrointestinal bile, basically, but you don't have to use all the expensive technical stuff. I've just done a batch, 25 litre sugar wash. Basically, I wasn't sure if it was still going or not. Normally you would get a big bloop, 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 bloop for the first few hours, and then it will just die down and it will slowly ferment, unless you're using turbo products or turbo yeast or that kind of chemicalized thing. But if you're not sure if it's actually still fermenting, you don't have to start weighing it and measuring it and using all that kind of stuff. I've got the tools, I've got the kit. I just can't be asked. All you need to do is get a teaspoon of sugar, put it into your bucket. If it goes psst, then that means it's still working, because it's eating up all those sugars and converting it into alcohol. I'll give you the slow version of making spirits. Okay, step by step. You take approximately 1 kilo of white sugar per makeup to make it up to 1 litre. Yep. So 1 kilo of sugar, you put it in a bucket, you add that up until it reads 1 litre. You make sure it's dissolved. You want it to be the temperature roughly, you can have it anywhere between 15 and 35 Celsius. The best temperature is 25 Celsius. When that gets to 25 Celsius, by warming up, cooling down, or whatever. Then you can add like a teaspoon of bread yeast. You can use other things. This is the simplest way to do it if you're not experienced in doing these things. Yep. So you've got a gallon bucket, which are fairly easy to get hold of. It's cheaper to go to a shop and buy a gallon of something than it is to go and buy an empty bucket. That's the sad thing. You go to a pet shop or a horse food place like a veterinary's place. You go there and you say you want to have a gallon of molasses. They'll give you a gallon of molasses for £4.50. Then the local pound shop, they'll charge you £6 for an empty plastic bucket for a 1 gallon bucket, a 5.5 litre bucket, 5 litre bucket, 4.5 litre bucket. That size, they'll charge you £4 or £5. But you can go get a bucket of contents for less. It's the world we live in. So you've got your 5 litres, 4.5 to 5 litres of sugar wash. It's called a sugar wash. Yeah. You've got your 5 litres, 4 or 5 litres. It's 1 kilo of sugar, roughly 4.5 litres of water. You added your yeast. Now that yeast will do a chemical conversion. It will convert all the sugars, well, most of the sugars, into alcohol. It would normally take roughly 1 to 2 weeks. But because of the conversion process releases CO2, I think it's CO2, carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. Anyway, it'll give you a headache. Don't have it in your bedroom or the living room if you're getting a big batch. So that, because it releases these gases as a byproduct, the bottle would explode. So you have to have either an open lid, which you can do if you want, but bugs do tend to go in and die, and they like to get drunk when they're drowning. So you can either put like a mesh on top, like a sock. Socks are quite good. You put a sock on top, they're not just rubbing a wank. You put your sock on top, lucky band around the top, keep the bugs out, lets the gas out. Or if you want to be really, really chancy, you can use a plastic bottle, put a lid on, and then every few hours just loosen the lid off and hope you don't pebble dash the entire ceiling with plum sauce, which I have done. Sorry, halfway house in Yeovil. So yeah, you can put like a little, what do they call it? Oh, it's like a breathe tube thingy. You can go and buy them for like 50p. If you want to make your own, to let the gas out without letting bacteria in or letting bugs in, all you have to do is get like a little bit of hose pipe, put it on top, tape it on or tie it on, then put the other end of the hose pipe into a bowl of water or a cup of water. And that way it'll bubble up through the water, but the bugs can't crawl in. So you do that, after about a week or 2 weeks at the most, the bubbling will stop and it will have converted most of that to alcohol. Now you can just drink it. It'll give you a fucking headache, but you can just drink it because that will be roughly 12-13% alcohol. So you're talking double the strength of a can of beer or 1,000 times the strength of an American can of beer. They do like to dilute everything, don't they? Except genocide. So once you've got that process done and it's been converted, you then want to cool it down to put it in a cooler place like the kitchen floor. So it's lowering the temperature. That just makes it easier to deal with. Once you've done that, it's tempting just to mess with it now because it's separated. But what you want to do is get a whisk or something you can beat it with and just go whisk, 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 whisk. This is called degassing. Because all that gas that was escaping, some of it is going to still be in there, and that's what can give you a bloody headache. I don't get hangovers from my drink. Never do. And I'm pretty sure this is one of the reasons, because I'm not drinking the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and all that kind of bollocks. So you do that maybe twice an hour. It can take you a few hours or it can take you a day. You keep on doing it until it stops frothing. When it's frothing, that's the gases escaping. Those gases will convert into your end product. So you do that, you degas it. So a few hours later or the next day, you want to wait until it's separated, until most of that sediment has dropped to the bottom of your bucket. And then you can take that clear liquid, put it into your still. I did a video on the other channel, and I've got 2 stills. I've got an air still and I've got an actual still. but I did actually show how you can do it just using household cooker type equipment. For example, I used a pressure cooker. Now the pressure release valve in a pressure cooker, you take excuse me, you take your like a little plastic tubing. I used a piece I got from a bike battery. It's the same size. I took that, put it up and down into a saucepan of water. So that when I was heating it up on the stove, the sugar wash, it would distill up the pipe into the water to cool down and then out that bucket into another one. It's a bit convoluted, but it was a homemade still. It worked. So distillation. Distillation is basically you're heating up your alcohol to, oh bollocks, 78? I think, I don't do scripts, sorry. I've just have a little search for yourself. I'm pretty sure it's 78.6. I think it's 78.6. It's a temperature, centigrade of course, because I live in the 21st century, not the 18th. So that's a temperature at which alcohol vapor separates from the liquid. And methanol separates before ethanol. Ethanol, good booze. Methanol, date rape drug, will kill you. So meth is bad, F is good. So the first bit that comes off distillation, you generally dump that because that's going to be methanol. It does taste different. Don't drink it. It does taste a bit different and it does smell different. It smells a bit rank. You will, after experience, you get to notice a difference. So when you get your alcohol come out, it will be at different strengths. You won't just get X strength coming out the whole way through. The first bit is going to be methanol. You might get that at the end of a while. If you're using just sugar, you will have hardly any methanol. You will have so little amount, it is not worth the grief separating it. If you were to separate it, you'd be separating such a piddling amount, it's barely a tablespoon. That is the amount of methanol you're going to get from a 4-litre bucket of vodka. So if you're talking about a 4-litre wash, that will give you roughly 1 litre of 38% alcohol. So one bag of sugar, 4.5 litres of water, teaspoon of yeast. After a couple of weeks, that will give you roughly about 1 litre of vodka. And because you're using just sugar, there's not much methanol coming through. Methanol, this 1 minute video is dragging on. I'm not going to go into chemical compositions. The different chemical compositions of foodstuffs will directly relate to how much methanol percentage chance there is of getting. Sounds complicated, right? If you use grain, such as oats, corn, barley, you will get a certain amount of methanol coming out the end product. It's not a massive amount, but it's not a minimal amount. It's the average amount will be, so a 1 litre wash, a 5 litre wash, you want to get rid of maybe 50 mil at the start, roughly 50 milliliters at the start. The highest amount of methanol you're going to get from your standard, not extra special crap, your standard grains or your standard product is going to be fruit. Fruit will give you the highest amount of methanol. That's why in a lot of fruity countries, you get a lot of high percentage of date rapes and murders of girls are committed using alcohol. Because what they'll do, they do so much fermentation using fruit, they're intentionally making methanol. Why am I going purple? They're intentionally making methanol to use it as a date rape drug. So fruit will give you a higher, more methanol when you're doing your distillation. So you'll be getting rid of a quarter of a pint, 400 mil maybe. If you're doing a 5 litre sugar wash, you're looking at maybe 200 mil at the start and maybe some at the end as well of methanol. You'll smell the difference. There is a distinctive difference. But with a sugar wash, because you're using a processed vegetable product, you don't have any real methanol to come at. There's hardly any coming out. I've got 3 jars on the window ledge from my next batch from the last time. And I'm not going to dump it because it actually smells all right, even though it's the first and the last bits. That's going to go into the distillation for the next lot. So I'm not concerned about it because I'm just using primarily sugar. The batches I've done in the past where I've used a lot of fruit, I've done a sugar wash and I just chucked in things like pears, plums, apples, oranges, love oranges. That I would take off the first bit because it does have a fair bit of methanol in the beginning. So it's experience, that's all it is. But it doesn't have to be complicated. And it doesn't have to be expensive to make your own vodka. I may notice behind me, there's a few bottles there. So it's a case of, the reason they're upside down, okay, the optics are upside down, is because it's a rubber seal in between the bottle and the actual optic, where the bit where the drink comes out. It's called an optic. That's what it's called. Because you can see into it, that's why it's called an optic. But anything other than glass or metal is going to melt when in contact with alcohol, with strong alcohol. That's why you don't get vodka in plastic bottles. Basically, it gives you brain damage. It actually sucks out all those toxic chemicals from the plastic, and it will actually, is that my delivery? And it gives you brain damage. So rather than having the right way up and having the alcohol and content with a rubber seal, over a few weeks, it's not an issue. But over a course of months, that will go through into the booze and it could poison me. But anyway, solid. Armake. This 1 minute video lasted for a quarter of an hour. Bye! Like, comment, subscribe.